I was just trying to cook today, and this happened on potatoes. So, speaking of Ireland, I cut this finger slicing potatoes for scallop potatoes and then to make chips. And then this one, I was just grazing some for like hash brown style. I got distracted for just a couple seconds and injured myself, but I guess we can just blame the Irish for the potato injuries. Seems logical in my mind. Hey everybody, welcome into Folklore and Flourish. Today is April 2nd. Practicing. We are in week 1 of the doorway with our first week of April. Remember that April is the month of Fae and Hidden Worlds, and it is the archetype of the Veil Walker. So for week 1, yesterday we had the opening for the doorway, and today we have the fair ones. So our theme is the hidden people. So for April 2nd, with the hidden people and the fair ones, we're going to look at this through Celtic, Icelandic, Persian, and Hindu folklore today. Enjoy these 4 stories of the fair ones and the hidden people. Before we begin, I want to take a moment to honor the cultures behind the stories we are about to explore. The tales shared here come from many peoples, lands, and traditions. I do not change these stories to fit modern expectations or to align with today's social standards. Instead, I present them as they were told, sometimes beautiful, sometimes harsh, sometimes challenging. We are not here to judge the past, but to understand it, to listen, to learn, and to honor the ancestors who carried these stories forward. We also share stories from various religious traditions. These are presented in their historical and spiritual context, with respect for their beliefs that they represent. Every culture deserves respect, context, and acknowledgement, and this space is dedicated to doing exactly that. Story 1. The Sidhe, the hidden people of the mounds. Within the mythological and folkloric traditions of Ireland, the Sidhe, often referred to as the hidden people, or as the Sidhe, are understood not as imaginary beings, but as parallel race that exist alongside humanity, occupying a world that overlaps the visible landscape while remaining concealed beneath it. Most commonly associated with ancient burial mounds known as Sídhe, which dot the Irish countryside and are regarded not merely as archaeological features, but as entrances or dwellings of these otherworldly inhabitants. According to early Irish belief, particularly as preserved in medieval texts, such as the Libor Gavala Éireann, the Sídhe are the descendants of the Tuatha De Danann, a divine race said to have ruled Ireland before the arrival of the Malaysians, and rather than being destroyed or leaving entirely, they retreated into the earth itself, shifting into an unseen existence where they continue to live in a realm that mirrors the human world, but operates under different laws. This transition did not remove them from the land, but placed them within it, creating a condition in which the human and the Sídhe worlds coexist in the same physical space, separated not by distance, but by perception and access. And it is widely believed in Irish folklore that certain times and places allow for the boundary to thin, particularly during festivals such as Samhain, where the veil between worlds becomes more permeable, and interactions between humans and the Sídhe are more likely to occur. The Sídhe are not inherently benevolent or malevolent, but exist according to their own rules, often described as highly aware, intelligent, and sensitive to respect and intention. And many traditional stories emphasize the importance of proper conduct when dealing with them, including not disturbing their mounds, not building over their paths, and offering acknowledgement or small gestures of respect when entering spaces believed to be under their influence, as failure to do so is said to result in misfortune, illness, or unexplained disturbances, not as punishment in a moral sense, but as a consequence of violating the balance between worlds. Numerous accounts within Irish folklore describe individuals who encounter the Sidhe, sometimes hearing music emanating from within the mounds, witnessing lights or figures in the distance, or even being drawn into their realm, where time behaves differently, echoing similar patterns found in broader Celtic otherworld narratives. And in some cases, those who enter do not return, or return changed, having experienced a passage into a realm that cannot be fully reconciled with ordinary reality. The persistence of these beliefs into more recent centuries, including documented practices of avoiding interferences with fairy mounds during construction or land development, demonstrate that the Sidhe are not viewed solely as mythological figures, but as an integrated part of the cultural understanding of the land itself, representing a recognition that not all aspects of existence are visible or accessible, and that the world contains layers that must be approached with awareness and respect. The concept of the Sidhe reinforces the idea that the unseen is not empty, but inhabited, and that presence does not require visibility to be real, emphasizing a worldview in which humans are not the sole occupants of their environment, but participants within a broader, partially hidden system of existence, where interaction is possible, but only under conditions that honor the boundaries between what is seen and what remains concealed. Story 2. The Huldufólk, the hidden folk of the land. Within the folklore of Iceland, the Huldufólk, meaning hidden people, are understood as beings who live parallel to human society, inhabiting rocks, hills, and natural formations throughout the landscape. And unlike distant or abstract mythological figures, they are regarded with Icelandic tradition as an active and present population, whose existence overlaps the human world. Though they remain largely unseen, and their presence is so deeply embedded in cultural awareness that even in modern times, construction projects have been altered or delayed to avoid disturbing areas believed to be their dwellings. Reflecting a continuity of belief that extends far beyond symbolic storytelling, the Huldufólk are often described as resembling humans in appearance, living structured lives with homes, families, and communities, yet their world operates according to different conditions, particularly in relation to visibility and interaction, as they choose when and to whom they reveal themselves, reinforcing the idea that perception is not solely determined by human ability, but by permission and circumstance. Many traditional accounts describe individuals who encounter the Huldufólk unexpectedly, often in liminal spaces such as isolated valleys, lava fields, or near distinctive rock formations, where the boundary between the seen and unseen appears less stable. And these encounters are rarely random, often occurring when a person unknowingly enters a space that belongs to the hidden people, or disrupts it in some way, at which point the Huldufólk may respond either by revealing themselves briefly or by influencing events in subtle ways, such as causing tools to go missing, altering paths, or creating sensations of being watched, not as acts of aggression, but as indicators of their presence and a request for recognition or respect. One of the most consistent themes with Icelandic folklore is that the Huldufólk prefer to remain undisturbed, and that harmonious coexistence depends on human acknowledgement of their presence without intrusion. And in many stories, individuals who show respect, whether by altering their actions, offering a quiet acknowledgement, or avoiding interference with certain areas, experience no harm and may even receive subtle assistance, while those who disregard these boundaries may encounter persistent disruptions until the balance is restored. Unlike more dramatic mythological narratives, the stories of the Huldufólk are often grounded in everyday life, involving farmers, travelers, and workers who interact with the land directly, reinforcing the idea that the unseen world is not separate from daily existence, but interwoven with it, and that awareness of this coexistence is part of living in alignment with the environment. This belief reflects a broader Icelandic worldview shaped by the island's unique geography, where vast, open landscapes and striking natural features create a sense of presence that extends beyond the visible, encouraging a perspective in which not everything is immediately accessible or meant to be fully understood, and where restraint and attentiveness are valued over dominance or control. The Huldufólk therefore serve not only as figures within folklore, but as representations of an underlying principle that the world contains layers of existence that are not defined by human perception, and that respectful coexistence requires recognizing that not all inhabitants of a place are visible, reinforcing the idea that the unseen does not equate to the non-existent. and that influence can occur without direct observation, shaping experiences in ways that are subtle, consistent, and deeply integrated into the environment itself. Story 3. The Peri, Spirits of the Hidden Air. Within the mythological and literary traditions of Persia, particularly as preserved in texts such as the Shahnameh and later Islamic-era folklore, the Peri, often translated as fairy-like or luminous spirits, occupy a unique and complex position as beings associated with beauty, invisibility, and the unseen layers of existence. And unlike darker entities such as the Div, who represent chaos and opposition, the Peri are typically understood as refined, ethereal beings who exist within a parallel realm that overlaps the human world but remains largely inaccessible, moving through spaces that are not bound by physical limitations, often associated with air, light, and remote natural environments such as mountains, gardens, and hidden valleys. In earlier Zoroastrian-influenced gardens, the Peri were not always viewed positively, sometimes considered ambiguous or even fallen beings. Particularly in Persian literature, their portrayal evolved into one of grace, beauty, and spiritual refinement, reflecting a broader cultural shift in how unseen beings were understood, not as purely moral opposites, but as part of a layered cosmology where different forms of existence operate according to different principles. The Peri are frequently described as appearing in human form, often indistinguishable from people except for an unusual radiance or perfection, and their interactions with humans are rare and often fleeting, occurring in moments where the boundary between worlds becomes less defined, such as in dreams, solitude, or transitional states of awareness. And these encounters are not typically initiated by humans, but by the Peri themselves, reinforcing the idea that access to the unseen is governed by conditions beyond human control. Many stories describe individuals who encounter a Peri and attempt to follow or remain with them, only to find that the experience cannot be sustained, as the Peri do not belong to the human world and cannot remain within it indefinitely. And in some narratives, a Peri may form a temporary connection with a human, offering guidance, insight, or presence, but ultimately must return to their own realm, leaving the individual changed but unable to fully replicate or revisit the encounter. This reinforces a central theme within Persian thought that the unseen world is not meant to be possessed or controlled, but experienced in moments that cannot be extended beyond their natural limits, and that attempting to force continuity between worlds leads to imbalance or loss. The Peri therefore represent a form of presence that is neither fully separate nor fully integrated, existing within a threshold state that reflects the broader Persian cosmological understanding of layered reality, where multiple forms of existence coexist without fully intersecting, and where awareness of these layers requires not physical access, but a form of perceptual openness that allows for recognition without attachment. This perspective emphasizes that not all beings seek interaction or visibility, and that the unseen operates according to its own structure, independent of human expectation, reinforcing the idea that presence does not depend on acknowledgement, and that influence can occur without direct engagement, shaping experiences subtly through atmosphere, intuition, and moments of heightened awareness, demonstrating that the world contains dimensions that are not defined by physical boundaries, but by states of being that are rarely sustained and never fully controlled. Story 4. The Yakshas, Guardians of the Hidden Thresholds. Within the mythological and religious traditions of India, particularly in early Hindu and later Buddhist texts, the Yakshas are understood as nature-bound spirits who inhabit a realm that exists alongside the human world. Associated with forests, mountains, rivers, and hidden places within the earth, and they are often described as guardians of natural wealth, fertility, and sacred spaces, existing not as distant deities, but as localized presences tied directly to specific environments, reinforcing the idea that the unseen world is not abstract, but embedded within the physical landscape. In early Vedic and Puranic literature, Yakshas are depicted as both benevolent and potentially dangerous, depending on how they are approached, and they are frequently linked to Kubera, the god of wealth, serving as attendants or custodians of hidden treasure, not only in the material sense, but also in the form of life-giving resources such as water, vegetation, and fertile land, positioning them as intermediaries between the visible world and the deeper, sustaining forces that support it. Unlike gods, who are often distant and worshipped through formal ritual, Yakshas are encountered more directly, often appearing in stories as figures who test human awareness, humility, and respect, particularly when individuals enter spaces that are not fully under human control, such as dense forests or remote areas, where the boundary between the known and the unknown becomes less defined. One of the most well-known narratives involving a yaksha appears in the Mahabharata, where the eldest Pandava, Yudhishthira, encounters a yaksha at a forest lake, who demands that he answer a series of questions before drinking the water. After his brothers have already ignored the warning and fallen unconscious, and rather than reacting with force or dismissal, Yudhishthira engages with the yaksha respectfully, answering questions related to dharma, or moral order, demonstrating not only knowledge, but discernment and composure. And through this interaction, he is granted the return of his brothers' lives, illustrating that the yaksha's role is not to harm arbitrarily, but to assess and respond based on the behavior and awareness of those who encounter them. This story reflects a broader understanding within Hindu tradition that unseen beings operate according to principles that are not immediately visible, but are consistent in structure, and that successful interaction with such beings depends not on dominance, but on alignment with those principles, particularly respect, awareness, and adherence to moral order. Yakshas therefore represent a form of presence that is both integrated into and hidden within the world, influencing outcomes without constant visibility, and reinforcing the idea that the natural environment is not empty or passive, but inhabited and responsive, requiring a level of attentiveness that extends beyond what is immediately perceived. This perspective emphasizes that not all forces within existence are meant to be seen or controlled, and that recognition of unseen influences does not require direct evidence, but an understanding that presence can manifest through consequence, interaction, and the structure of experience itself, demonstrating that the world is layered and that the unseen plays an active role in shaping what is visible, often through quiet, indirect means that become apparent only when one is attentive to the patterns and conditions that surround them. Hey everybody, welcome back in. I hope you enjoyed those 4 stories. Today is April 2nd and you are here with Jane over at Blue Box 29. So today was all about the fair ones. We got to see 4 stories today that talked about the hidden people. And the lesson is that not all beings seek to be seen. So we know that with quite a number of creatures out in the world today, that they don't like to be messed with. They don't like to be interacted with. And it's the same with things within the unseen. That's why some creatures are invisible to us or are just not visible at the frequency that we're accepting right now. But with story 1, we jump into the Sidhe and the hidden people of the mounds. So in Ireland, we get to see how much nature is a part of everything, how nature breathes, how nature has its personality, right? So at the mounds, we get to see the Sidhe. So these are intentional places where they are being protected, where there is respect and honor that's necessary when you walk by. I think that it kind of reminds me of when we watch shows and how nature works against us when we are in new lands. We're in mysterious places. Nature works against us, but it's not really nature working against us so much as we're working against ourselves. So I don't think that necessarily we have to know everything that's happening in the world, but to take a guide with us if we don't know the land, if we don't know that there are mounds where the hidden people lay, because there are consequences, there are dangers to being disrespectful or to simply walking by without acknowledgement, which is a form of disrespect to a lot of these things. I was just trying to cook today, and this happened on potatoes. So speaking of Ireland, I cut this finger slicing potatoes for scallop potatoes and then to make chips. And then this one, I was just grazing some for like hash brown style. I got distracted for just a couple seconds and injured myself, but I guess we can just blame the Irish for the potato injuries. Seems logical in my mind. But I'm not going to blame the Sidhe because they are part of nature and that's a no-no. The Sidhe, just like many of the other fair ones, are meant to be honored and respected, meant to be acknowledged. But not only that, they don't need their presence actually recognized. right? So when we say they seek to be acknowledged, but they don't need to be seen to be recognized, it's kind of this idea that honor nature, because there's so much more to nature than just a mound or a hill or a tree or a mountain. The earth is breathing every second and every day. And I truly believe it's not just water that holds memory, but the earth itself holds memory. It remembers. So it does show us that respect isn't just shown through interaction. In this case, it's shown a lot more through awareness and restraint. So your ability to recognize something as not meant for us. We've talked about that before, where humans kind of just touch and acquire and conquer things, and not everything is meant to be dealt with in that way. Many things aren't. So then we go into Iceland, where we go to the Huldufólk, and these are the hidden folk of the land. So our important note for this one, just starting right off, because I didn't know very much about the Huldufólk before this story. Looked into a little bit, but a number of these fair ones were new to me. So the important note for this one is that invisibility is not a requirement for presence. What is unseen may still shape your environment, and respect does not depend on proof. So I really liked that as well, because some things are just, some things we don't have the tangible evidence of. We don't have facts on. That's the whole purpose of faith and belief. And no, the earth isn't just going to give us all the answers. I mean, we're constantly uncovering new things that challenge what we've thought has happened in the world today and what's happened in the world in the past. But this is hugely representative of an Icelandic landscape, like it said in the story, because it is this dominant kind of features on there. So you have this vast landscape, you have these mountain peaks, you have these pools of water, and it is like a magical place. It has this volcanic stuff, I believe, too, but it emphasizes the glory of just being seen, right? In what is around us, what is nature, and the little workers, the energy that's behind that, they aren't always showing, right? And what I mean by that is one of the phrases towards the end is that as a representation of an underlying principle that the world contains layers of existence that are not defined by human perception, and that respectful coexistence requires recognizing that not all inhabitants of a place are visible, reinforcing the idea that the unseen does not equate to the non-existence, and that influence can occur without direct observation. So influence can happen in ways that we don't even notice. These little subtle things that happen to us throughout nature, and we go, oh, well, I felt the breeze of the wind, so I took that as a sign. You didn't see the wind necessarily, but you felt it. So there are a lot of things that can be felt and are felt rather than seen. And that's kind of the point, is that we as humans are humbled in the fact that we don't get to see everything. And even if we did see everything, I don't believe we could possibly fathom its true energy, its true aura, its true everything. All right. So story 3, the Peri. I liked how this one, it was a choice. And yes, they are another unseen creature, an unseen spirit. But when they are seen, apparently they're beautiful, as it said in the story. But I liked how it said that they may form a temporary bond with someone, with a human, to help guide, give insight or presence, just being there with them. And I think of every single story we've ever read where our hero, like in last month with March, where our hero had this presence, they just knew someone was with them. They couldn't pinpoint it, they couldn't name it, but they just knew. And yeah, and sometimes it was a little bit easier to identify who was with them. Odysseus with Athena, right? Because she comes forward to him. But sometimes these are just warnings. Sometimes these are just subtle little hints, like we talked about in the last story, of the presence doesn't mean that they're always seen. Sometimes they are just felt. And in this case, they're felt temporarily. So I brought up the fact that I liked how it said they have a temporary bond with humans, because it's just that it is temporary. It reminds me to kind of live in the moment and take in every second, all the things that are happening around me, because it is beautiful. And there are presences that are trying to communicate, trying to interact with us, even if it's simply just bringing awareness to what's around us. It's like when I live out in Nevada over by the Great Basin. And it's like when you hear a rattlesnake, obviously that's a warning, right? The rattle going off is a warning. But before the rattle starts going off, and if you're walking your dogs or you're with your horse or something, been with both, where they feel it, they sense something. They can feel that presence. And I truly believe that animals are way more attuned to the presence. The earth itself is way more attuned to it because I feel like we've been kind of, I guess brainwashed is a simple word for it, but I feel like we've been kind of brainwashed into assuming that there isn't magic in the world anymore, that there isn't energy work. And then now we're having people go out and prove that there is in the same scientific method that they tried to disprove. So it's cool to see that. And this kind of reminds us, and animals remind us that there is a lot that we as humans are, I think we really are arrogant to. I think we're arrogant to the energy because we're told that, ooh, energy, right? Or the feeling and intuition or that gut instinct that we have sometimes. And yeah, those are all real things. Those are all, different forms of these fair ones, like the Peri. They may be here temporarily while we need it, while we need guidance, while we need presence. And we can't even describe it sometimes when we're getting help, but then we get out of it like, wow. And then rounding up the 4 stories today with the Hindu, and as we see it later goes into the Buddhist texts as well. But the Yakshas, the nature-bound spirits that inhabit a realm, and all 4 of these stories, we see that these spirits are in a realm that's right next to the human realm. It's not this faraway land or anything like that. They exist within the same physical space. We just don't have the capabilities of seeing it because we're limiting our own minds. That's why it's so exciting being Mark's partner right now and watching him work with the energy work and the higher self and the higher consciousness, because he's opening doors for people, for himself, for me, for our family to really grow and thrive and heal and live and love each other again, because we all came from different, I guess, because we've all had pasts where I feel like we didn't think it would get better necessarily, that we wouldn't find people. And now we've allowed ourselves, both of us, before we even met, we kind of we were in our own worlds, right? We were in our own healing stages, but we were working towards our personal energy, our individuality. And it's so fun to be with someone now who's fully into that. And I don't know, it's just exciting. But anyways, the Yakshas, the guardians of the hidden thresholds, these guys show that not all guardians reveal themselves. Respecting a place and its unseen presence is often what allows you to move through it safely. So it's like every single movie where like scary movie or fantasy movie where you see the kid beating up the trees or beating up nature, and then all of a sudden nature hits it back. Um, Maybe those are just movies that I've seen in my head. Now that I'm thinking about it, I couldn't actually name one except Narnia, when the trees actually wake up in Prince Caspian and whoop some booty cheeks. But I'll get back to you. I know nature sometimes flicks and gets irritated, right? But sometimes us simply being respectful and walking through nature, walking through the world without disrupting or disrespecting or destroying things, sometimes that's all it takes for us to have a beautiful life. I mean, as crazy as that sounds and as simple as it sounds, that's really all that is required of a beautiful life, is to walk through with respect and decency towards one another, towards ourselves and towards nature, and embracing it. And that's when nature really gives its blessing back to us. Because as much of it being energy and me being excited about the energy, that's also just the way that nature works, right? It acts out on us, we act out on it. And it's this cycle of humans being humbled in the fact that nature will always win in those circumstances, right? So we throw out a cigarette outside on the side of the road. And then that in itself is chemicals going out into the ecosystem to destroy it, right? We don't care. We throw it out. Then it lights on fire, and that fire drives through all this acreage and comes back at us. Nature is angry. Nature will grow back up, but I mean, some lives are lost, some homes are destroyed, and that's a lot harder to come back. Um, just being respectful of when we're in places. That doesn't mean that we have to change ourselves to accommodate to everyone or to every different culture. We can be happy with who we are and still be respectful of other people's cultures, still be listening, understanding, or seeking to learn from other cultures. And that's kind of what this one reminds me of. And I think that's what a lot of the Hindu and Buddhist beliefs truly are is we're not asking everybody to agree on the same things, right? And no, I'm not saying we as I'm speaking for them, but in my head, that's my perception of it is Hinduism and Buddhism are thinking that the differences, the uniqueness are essential, are important as to who we are, but we can all love each other in different ways because of that. We can all live in harmony and be respectful. And that looks very different than I even think I could describe or what I've been taught. I don't think it's respect the older people that are in the room or respect the people who have been in positions of power. I think it's just respecting everyone, acknowledging that every individual was created. Therefore, they are worth something, right? We are all worth something. I don't think that we can use any checklist to go, oh, I'm more worthy than you, or you're more worthy than I. I think simply by being given the opportunity to live, we got to give ourselves an opportunity to learn and to love and to grow. And so, with that, today, our daily thread with the fair ones, the she dwell beneath the land, unseen yet present. The Huldufólk move quietly within the spaces we cross. The Peri appear only when the moment allows. The Yakshas guard what is not meant to be taken lightly. Each presence exists without needing recognition. Each world continues whether we perceive it or not. The unseen is not absent, the unseen is not absent, only unacknowledged. And what you honor quietly may already be guiding you. It is also just exciting to sit here and think that there are other beings out there watching us in the sense that they want to see us thrive. They are helping us. And sometimes they do interact to, nudge us back on our path or bring awareness to us. But as we think about those today, the reflection question is what unseen presence do I feel? So now it's not just looking at, do I feel something or not? No, what is something I have been feeling? So what's something unseen that's just been like in my body, making, I don't know, when you go somewhere, you just have this energy, whatever it may be. But today, we're going to leave something small outdoors as a quiet offering without expectation of response. So no, we're not putting in like, a crazy offering that you see in these movies or whatever. We're just leaving something small outdoors. Whatever it may be, maybe something to complement your porch, maybe something to bring happiness. Maybe since it's springtime, we go buy flowers and we put some on our front porch or right outside our doorway. Regardless, we want it to be something small and it's a quiet offering to the land. And this is just without expectation of response, a simple thank you. And then I'm gonna leave you, and then I'm gonna leave you with practice honoring what influences your life without demanding proof or visibility. I'm really talking to myself, I was so excited for April and I still am so excited for April because I truly felt like some of these were some of the heavier lessons that I really needed to be living in right now. So I'm saying that to myself right now. I need to practice honoring what influences my life without demanding proof or visibility. And that's a huge thing for me, especially living so much on people's actions lately, the past couple of years of, no words, but just simple actions, what I'm seeing. Now I need to back up a little bit and see the things that aren't within my peripherals and to feel them, not necessarily see them, but feel them. I don't need proof or visibility all the time. And that doesn't mean that if we're living without proof or visibility that we don't ask for it. Absolutely we do. I just know for myself I need to stop relying on that alone. But with all of that for today, we got to see the fair ones. We got to see a little bit of what's working side by side with us. It'd be cool. I wonder how many are in this room right now with us. So exciting. But anyways, we left with the fair ones, the hidden people, and that not all beings seek to be seen. That's same with people too. But that doesn't mean that every once in a while things don't change, right? Where every once in a while we want a little bit of excitement. So, with that, I'm going to leave you for April 2nd, and I will see you tomorrow for April 3rd, where we get into the glamour. Bye, guys.